Hi, I'm Femi Oke.
And I'm Malika Bilal, and you're in the stream.
Ousted and replaced. It's been 1 week since Brazil's Senate voted to strip Dilma Rousseff of her presidential powers. Her removal concluded a political saga that has divided the country for months.
So on the country's Independence Day, we speak to Brazilians about the fallout from Rousseff's impeachment. Take a look.
Estão comendo no nosso país não é apenas para destituir uma presidenta eleita, é contra a maioria do povo brasileiro.
Rousseff was impeached for breaking budgetary laws, allegations which she denies. She made her case before the vote.
Clara.
The Constitution clearly sets out the necessity for impeachment on the basis of a crime, an impeachment process which commits the violent act of removing an innocent president is called a coup d'etat.
Rousseff's plea wasn't enough to hold on to the presidency, and the country is further polarised. Malika has more on that.
While some celebrated her removal, thousands have taken to the streets in protest. Now, over the year, numerous competing hashtags emerged online, with Twitter users debating the course of events. And since Impeachment Day, as it's known, last week, even more hashtags have popped up, with some getting hundreds of thousands of mentions. Now, Brazilians who've welcomed the decision to remove Rousseff have been met with others who found the move an attack on Brazil's democratic process. One thing for sure is that there are very differing opinions coming out of Brazil about the impeachment, and we want to hear yours. So tweet us with hashtag AJStream.
The country's newly appointed president, Michel Temer, has promised a new era of government, but his political record and own links to corruption scandals have many asking if things will be any different. With the recent developments, Brazilians are divided over how to move the country forward. So to help us talk about this, we're joined by Eduardo Hegdesa. He is an economist and activist in Rio de Janeiro. Felipe Camazato is a pro-impeachment activist from Porto Alegre. Lucas de Arago is the director of Arco Advice, that's a political analysis firm in Brasilia. And Rafael Savco Garcia is a blogger for The Angry Brazilian, and he's currently coming to us from Bilbao in Spain. Gentlemen, welcome. Let me just start with Felipe, who has been smiling all the way through the beginning of our show. Let me just share something with you from your former president. Today is the day that 61 men, many of them charged and corrupt, threw 54 million Brazilian votes in the garbage. Felipe, many are saying that that's not democracy. What went wrong there? And you would say what?
Well, first of all, I would say that this quote is wrong, because the 54 million votes who elected Temer, which is the vice president. So, and despite that, I think the Constitution was respected. Not only that, since Dilma committed a fiscal crime, she was convicted in this crime and then he was impeached. So the wrong thing is, it would be if she didn't go to the process of impeachment because of that. So what I think is that the Constitution was respected, and also the 54 million votes were also respected.
Eduardo, what's your take?
Well, I disagree completely, because 54 million people voted for a Dilma presidency for a certain program. You know, of course, Michel Temer was sworn in as vice president, but the Brazilian people didn't vote for what he stands for. You know, I mean, that's what it means to throw 54 million votes on the garbage. People didn't vote. The majority of the Brazilian voters didn't vote for the program he is advancing, which is a minimum state, radical, market, fundamentalist government. You know, basically. And I mean, and also I disagree with my colleague, because I mean, it follows certain rights, but most of the congressmen are corrupt and are involved in Operation Car Wash itself. So it's not, you know, it's a judgment where the one politician who's not corrupt was ousted by a criminal.
So, Eduardo, here's someone who would agree with you. This is via Twitter. The impeachment of Rousseff is truly a threat to democracy. Her replacements are already doing 90% of what she got impeached for. Not quite, but I get his idea there. On the other hand, though, Rafael, we get this version of events. This is in Portuguese, and we've translated it there. The impeachment strengthened democracy. And even if Temer is corrupt, I don't think, he goes on to say, that he will ruin the country the same way that Dilma did. Rafael, end of democracy, strengthening democracy, what's your take?
Well, I don't think either of the options. 54 million people voted for Dilma and Temer. They were together. But the issue is Dilma imposed an agenda that was, frankly, the opposite of what she promised. She promised a homeland of education. That's what was her slogan. But the first thing she did was cut on education, cut on research, and cut on many different areas of the government, quite the opposite of what she did. And about democracy itself, I don't think it's going to change much on the democratic landscape of Brazil. People still being murdered in favelas the same way, police is beating everyone in a demonstration the same as in 2013 and before. So I believe that when you say that a bunch of criminals, a bunch of corrupted politicians just ousted Dilma, but at the same time, the same criminals, the same corrupted politicians who were supporting Dilma 3-4 months ago. So they're not good enough to oust Dilma, to impeach Dilma, but they're good enough to support the government. So I think we have an issue of legitimacy.
Well,
the whole Congress
they
is
are
not
Brazil.
legitimate.
You cannot govern without them. So, you might as well try to harness them. And that's what the Workers' Party has been trying to do. I mean, I don't agree with a lot of what Dilma did in her second term, but it's a little delusional to think that any president will be able to govern Brazil without, those criminals.
I agree with you, but at the same time,
you cannot just disappear with them.
I agree with you, but at the same time, if you think that you have to govern with those criminals, you have to accept that those criminals can impeach a president the same way.
My colleague Mehdi Hassan works on an Al Jazeera program called Upfront, and his team crunched the numbers for the honesty of your politicians in Brazil. Have a listen to what he found out.
Of the 65 members on a commission to impeach Dilma, 37 of them, that's more than half, face charges of corruption or other crimes. And of the 513 members of Brazil's lower house of Congress, 303 of them are either being investigated or being charged with a range of criminal offences, from corruption to homicide to slavery. Yes, I did just say slavery. The same is true for 49 of the country's 81 senators who'll be voting on whether to impeach Dilma.
Felipe, you hit the streets to actually be an activist and ask for this impeachment to happen. These are the politicians that are left in Brazil who are ruling the current administration of Brazil. Is that what you wanted?
Absolutely not. That's why I'm affiliated with a new political party, which is called Novo, which is made by people that never was in politics before, people that have their own businesses, they are liberal professionals, they are public services employee, and they don't want and do not feel represented by any of these politics and parties that we have in Brazil. So this is going to be the first election that we will run in the city elections in the October 2nd on this year. And one thing that I would like to add, about the video that you just showed, this is a common defense of Dilma supporters, that we have 303 congressmen that are corrupt, so then Dilma could not be impeached. Well, I think one wrongdoing cannot be accepted just because the Congress also has corrupt people. Otherwise, it will be just okay to do whatever any politician wants without any responsibilization. So we need to stop with this kind of connivent posture.
Rafael,
I agree. May I jump in for a second?
I want to bring Lucas in because there was a point just made about not feeling represented. This is a video. I want to show you some protests that took place just last week. Have a look at this.
Temer, golpista, não governará. Temer,
So these are anti-Temer protesters chanting, "Temer, the coup plotter, will not govern." Lucas, what are approval ratings for the new president of Brazil? What are they looking like, and how easy do you think his road is going to be?
Just a comment beforehand. I think it's all the points made were very valid. I think if we go into the road of are the people in the Senate corrupt or in the House corrupt, it's going to be a never-ending debate. But in my view, it's very simple. The crime of fiscal responsibility is not for me or for the others here to decide if it happened or not. According to the Constitution, it's for the Senate to make a decision. The Constitution is very clear. The Senate is the governing body for the impeachment. No one can put a decision other than the Senate regarding the impeachment, not even the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can only rule on the procedures, that is, only on the rules, on the guidelines. And many times that the Supreme Court was asked to intervene on the process, it allowed it to go further. And just to point out that 8 out of the 11 Supreme Court ministers were appointed by the Workers' Party, either by Lula or by Dilma Rousseff. Regarding the approval rates of Temer, it is low. He is not well known in the country.
Low.
His regular percentage is much big. The approval is similar to what Dilma has, but the difference is that Dilma had a much higher rejection, and he lays on the regular much more than she does in the division of good, regular, or bad. Just to point out, the numbers of Itamar Franco after the impeachment of Fernando Collor in 1992. Itamar Franco was the president of Brazil after our first impeachment in 1992. After he took over, his numbers were somewhat similar, with about 13 to 14% of approval right after the impeachment of Fernando Collor. I think the road ahead to Temer is with a lot of challenges. I think he has a lot of challenges socially, economically, politically. It's a difficult country to rule. We have 30 parties in the country, about 26 to 27 in the House. It's what we call coalition presidentialism, which is a term coined by a political scientist in the 80s, meaning that to preside, to rule, you have to make coalition, alliances. And this is what he has to do, something that Cardoso did in 1994 to 2001, Lula did, Dilma did not do. And as Plato said, those that don't like politics will be ruled by those who like. She didn't like it, and the real politics took over here in Brazil and took her out of the
Lucas, let me ask you something
process.
here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eduardo. You go first, I go second.
Oh, no,
You're my guest.
I mean, I agree with the last thing that Lucas said, that real politics in Brazil is dirty politics, is criminal politics. I mean, that's what's taken over Brazil. And now all conservative talking heads are very tolerant toward Temer, you know, like, oh, it's going to be a lot of challenges, and everybody's, the crisis is a worldwide conjuncture, and it's very complicated. And no, I mean, before that, people were hysterical, you know. And I mean, commenting on one of the points you made about, of course, the Constitution is clear. The Senate is sovereign to rule and determine whether there was a fiscal crime or not. But we cannot, I mean, we might discuss it, and we might suspect a Senate who is heavily involved in corruption. You know, they are judges, but they are corrupt judges.
All right, so I want to throw something out there. Felipe, I want to give this to you. This is Marina, who writes, Temer needs to prove that he can get the economy rolling again without doing away with the beloved social programs that brought much of the middle class out of poverty, and this is a thin line to walk. So she puts the challenge for him there. Others aren't so sure he can do it. This is Carlos Latouche, famed cartoonist, and he shows Temer right there, and you can say Dilma Rousseff is right in front of him, and the rug is being pulled out from under her. And he says you can't expect much from someone who conspired, he says, against an elected president. So Felipe, do you think he can then do what that first commenter said in making sure that those social programs are still there, or are you a little bit less trusting like Carlos?
I think it's a big challenge, but as Rafael mentioned before, when Dilma was in the campaign in 2014, she was promising a lot of stuff, especially regarding the social programs. And what happened next is that Brazil faced a very hard and deep crisis. because of her bad management, and also because she and her team did not have any fiscal responsibility. So what happened next after her promises in campaign was that she didn't accomplish any of the promises, especially the ones regarding social programs. And now with Temer, I think he will have the same problem because we don't have a lot of money available to these social programs. We are facing a deep crisis, and also we need to start growing again.
That's not true.
Bolsa
Familia is very cheap. Bolsa Familia costs
it is
40 billion reais.
It's
It's a lie. We have money. How much does it cost?
What is a lie? But it's
that we don't have money for social
So, gentlemen, take a
No,
pause.
Gentlemen,
take a pause for a moment, because I'm looking at you all fine Brazilian men, fine white Brazilian men, and I'm thinking, oh, this reminds me of Temer's cabinet right now. Rafael, is that going to be a major problem for him and for the rest of the country as well? A cabinet that's all male, no females, all white. In Brazil?
No, definitely. No, for sure. The thing is, even though Dilma had a quite diverse cabinet with women and minorities and etc., she didn't really advance much on social policies as it was supposed to. But the thing is, Temer is sending a message to whom he's going to rule, which groups he's favoring. Concerning the issue of social programs, I don't think the world would be crazy. He's not crazy of ending the Bolsa Familia and all the social programs. He might cut one here and there in order to find money, but I don't think he's going to change social programs. At the same time, he's not going to create new programs. They are very much necessary and needed for the poor, for the most poor population. But we have to have in mind that Dilma herself had policies such as sending the army to favelas in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. She had the policy of supporting repression of social movements on the streets, like in 2013. And I don't think Temer is going to change much of such policies of repression, of using of force and abuse against social movements, against the black population and the favelas and etc. I think Temer so far shown that he's going to keep going with most of what Dilma was doing, especially concerning cuts on different areas and programs such as education. But I think that so far it's like nothing's really changing so far.
So Rafael, he will, you think, in your view, keep going with most of what Dilma was doing, except for on minority issues, people online are saying. So Ricardo on Twitter says the new president selected an all-male and white cabinet, as Femi mentioned earlier, first signal that women tend to lose space on politics. And here's a video comment about that same topic. This is Betty speaking to the stream.
I'm very concerned about the impeachment. I'm sure it will have a negative impact on women's rights and diversity in Brazil. As for an example, there's the lack of women and black people representing us in his ministry.
Eduardo, do those things concern you?
Well, no, yes, in itself, and also.
I'm not sure. Was that a yes or was that a no, or was that a
No. I mean, I just hesitated because there are a lot of dimensions to this. And of course, one of the dimensions is I mean, it's symbolic, you know. First, he tried to find a lot of women, a lot of people of color, and no one would,
Do you really believe that? Because there were women in the last cabinet.
No, yeah, he did try the press, you know, especially for the Ministry of Culture. He tried several women. None was willing to go that low, you know. But I mean, it's more about symbolism. And I disagree with my colleagues. They're saying, Rafael was saying that, you know, it's going to be more of the same. It's not. It's being approved in Congress already. It's frozen. You know, public expenditure is frozen for 20 years. That's the most radical public expenditure.
Just a correction, it hasn't been approved. You're talking about PEC, the Constitutional Amendment 241,
on the lower house.
Regarding spending. It hasn't been approved in the lower house. It's still in the committee with reporter Darcísio Perondi awaiting vote in the committee and not in the floor yet.
Gentlemen,
okay, but the government has articulated
I've got 5 minutes left in this conversation. Eduardo, just give me a moment here. I want to share something with you from the person that we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes or so. The president of Brazil, Michel Temer, he says here, what we need to do is restore confidence in the country. Felipe, how does he do that?
Well, first of all, I think he needs to show, especially the people that went out to the streets, that he's going to do the reforms that are really important for Brazil to do, especially the ones regarding the labor laws, that we are in the middle of an economic crisis and we need to do some changes in the labor law because it's impossible to be an entrepreneur in Brazil with such an complex
are you just being
bureaucratic.
hopeful here, Felipe, or is this something that's pragmatically that he could actually do? Has he shown any indication of doing that?
In the past 13 years, we had a government with Dilma and Lula, and they had the majority in the Congress, and they didn't try to do any of the reforms. So now, at least we have a chance to start discussing it. And I hope that this kind of discussion will start to do, because Brazil occupies one of the last positions in the global rankings of doing businesses. And this is how and why we cannot go and find jobs, we cannot grow as an economy, and we are facing such a deep crisis because we cannot recover it easily. I'm a small company owner. We have 60 employees there. And it's very difficult to hire people because, first of all, you need to pay as double as the people cost. They just receive half of it because the other half keeps with the government in taxes. Also, to fire somebody, especially in the moment of crisis, it's very complex. And also, the government don't
I hear you. I want to jump in just there a little bit, Felipe, because you said how difficult it was to fire someone. This is taking us in a little slight direction, different direction. But on the firing, corruption is on the top of people's minds on whether or not this will be able to get done. This is Shannon. Have a listen.
The real test will be if they can really follow through with some of their promises to get rid of those corruption problems. So, for example, to make sure that they follow through with the car wash investigation, which is wrapping in really high-level officials charged with corruption. Another test will be to see if they formally annul the term of the former Speaker of the House, Eduardo Cunha, who is largely recognized by people of all parties as the most corrupt politician in Brazil. If they can't formally annul his term, then that really says a lot about the future of corruption in Brazil.
Lucas, are any of those things possible?
Well, I think corruption is endemic to the country. We are a country with corrupt structures from the Portuguese in the 1500s in such a symbolic day as today. It is, I think, every political scientist would acknowledge. I even recommend a book by Sérgio Buarque de Holanda called The Roots of Brazil, which perfectly addresses that. We are a corrupt society and there's no way to deny it, given the size of the state, given the fragmentation of the politics of the parties. I think that we will be dealing with corruption in the municipal, federal, state levels for as many generations as it takes to get rid of the problem. I do think that we can have a glimpse of hope, but not because of the impeachment, or because of what's happening politically. But I do feel a sense of change in some points that I'd like to state. The first being the Lava Jato is a strong activity that will continue. Last week, it was confirmed that it will be.
How? Why do you think it's going to continue?
I think it's going to continue because yesterday the public prosecutors confirmed the Lava Jato until 2017.
So Lucas and Eduardo, I'm just going to ask you to both take a pause for a moment, just for literally a moment, because we are going to take you online to stream.aljazeera.com. If you want to know what Lucas, Eduardo, Felipe and Rafael have to say on the issue of Brazil and what next, join us online. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Take care. Hello everybody, I'm Femi OK. Malika Balawi is here as well. This is the online post show. Welcome. Now, I interrupted Eduardo and Lucas mid-debate.
Yeah, I just want to
pick up.
Get back to what Lucas was saying, that there's a glimpse of hope now that Operation Car Wash is going to move forward. But I mean, my feeling is the opposite, because the former chief of staff of Temer was tapped and the phone leaked. And there was a very specifically designed plan to how to stop car wash. And Dilma's impeachment was just the first step. I mean, this is public.
Just a correction, it wasn't the chief of staff, it was the former Minister of Planning, Romero Jucá, the chief of staff.
Oh yeah, but it's for foreign audiences is equivalent to the chief of staff.
Well,
no,
actually,
it's the Minister of
Planning.
And also,
it's kind of complicated to...
Rafael?
It's kind of complicated just to say that car wash is going away or it's not. We don't know. Most of the Brazilian population hope for the operation to keep going, and I think that the public pressure might play some role on maintaining this operation, this Lava Jato car wash. But I think that more important even than this operation and other operations is that we need to stand by grassroots movements, movements such as the homeless, the landless workers, and especially now movements that are struggling against police violence in Brazil and in the favelas. So more than just supporting police operations and regular political parties, we must stand with those small movements that started growing years and years ago, but in 2013 they had really huge relevance on the streets, and they're rising now once again. We must stand with these movements, because what we see in Congress is a crisis of representation and of legitimacy. Most of the population see the Senate and the lower chamber as not really legitimate spaces to pledge for real changes in the country. Probably 90% of the politicians are involved in corruption scandals and corruption cases. So I agree with those who say we need to look for grassroots movements.
Rafael, you say that so matter-of-factly. I want to bring in this video comment. This is another voice, because you mentioned the crisis of legitimacy. He's right there with you. This is Inacio.
You might be thinking that power has just gone from the hands of a president to the hands of a vice president, and the same policies should still apply. When in fact that's not true. Michel Temer, the new president, has made alliances with PSDB, a right-wing party that was defeated in the last 4 presidential elections in Brazil. So now their program is being implemented. And when a program that was defeated for 4 times through the direct vote of Brazilians is being implemented against their will, I would very much call this a coup.
So Felipe, he brought up elections, which are 2018. This is Giorgio also talking about elections. He says the best part of this is that she being allowed, meaning Rousseff, to take part in the next elections because she wasn't barred from that, while her ex-vice president will not be allowed to, that's Temer, for crimes that he committed. Do you find that topsy-turvy?
This is an incorrect fact. This is an incorrect fact, because the decision regarding Michel Temer was in the TRE, which is the Regional Electoral Court. It has still to be voted by the TSC, which is the Federal Electoral Court. So,
but it was voted by the TRE as regular. He's not allowed by.
I would like to finish my thoughts. I know you're very emotive about the issue, but I would like to just finish the.
Oh, I'm voted, but you are also incorrect.
The vote was decided by the TRE, and it's still, according to electoral law, he's not considered ineligible until a final decision by the TSC. So just a factual.
So just to translate that for our audience, you're saying that he could possibly still run? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because let me just explain how the courts work.
So Lucas, we're almost out of time, so make this a very, very brief explanation.
Of course. Yeah. Of course.
Like 2 lines.
Brazilian electoral law states that you cannot donate more than 10% of your annual income, and he donated 12% of his annual income and was found guilty by the TRE, which is the Regional Electoral Court, the local electoral court. For him to be considered unelectable, it would have to have a final decision by the TSC, which is the Federal Electoral Court.
All right, gentlemen, I have one last thought for you, and I'm going to ask you, I'm going to share this thought with you. You can share it back with me. And gentlemen, don't interrupt each other, or else we'll be here all day, and I don't have all day. All right, so Stability in Brazil, is that possible? Eduardo?
No, not for the, not.
I like the efficiency of that answer.
No. I mean, we need a democratically elected program. A program such as Inácio has commented that was
Eduardo, you have me at no because I'm wrapping up the show. Felipe, stability in Brazil, is that possible?
Yeah, it is. And Eduardo says that Dilma's program was not voted for. Actually, Temer's program was not voted for. But as Rafael said, Dilma's program was not accomplished by her. She lied. So also, Eduardo voted for no such program.
No, but it's not. I mean, your little party.
Okay, so much for the uninterrupted. Lucas, you know what I'm going to ask you? Stability, Brazil, possible?
I think for the next 2 years, very unstable stability, if that's even something. But I think
unstable stability. I like that.
Yeah, because the car wash and the economic crisis and the whole difficulty of advancing will create issues. But I do think that a final stability will happen with general direct elections in October of 2018.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that's a little while away. Rafael, your final comment.
Well, also no. Although I would disagree with Lucas, I don't think that even in 2018 we'll see some stability approaching. I believe that first we must change the whole political system of Brazil and reduce drastically the number of political parties.
And Malika.
Stability or no, we're going to go straight to the streets of Recife. People were there just a few hours ago. I would say no, but have a look and decide for yourself.
Bom dia, eu sou Aníbal do Sindicato da Borracha. Estamos aqui no ato dos excluídos e reivindicando o retorno à democracia desse país. Após este golpe, fica difícil ficarmos na retaguarda do processo e trazer consciência que vamos estar unidos, lutando para nenhuma retirada de conquistas, que foi já um processo árduo nesses últimos períodos e vamos continuar nesta luta. Qualquer retirada de direito, vamos às ruas e vamos trabalhar uma greve geral.
So as Anibal there told the stream, we will continue the fight and the stream will continue to watch. See you online.